How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to My Gardening Habit. I'm Rob Mayer, and today we're going to talk about compost. I've been getting a lot of questions on YouTube and on TikTok about how I compost, so I just want to run you through basically what we've been doing. We save all of our food scraps. Anything that's not meat goes into one of these bins. This is just an overflow with the holidays. Usually we'll have these sealed Rubbermaid containers, and through the week we'll just fill this up. We have bread that goes bad, some old rice, onions, eggshells, any food scraps that isn't like meaty, fatty meats can go in here. You don't want to put milk products, meat products, stuff like that will attract a lot of raccoons and other pests. Also the dogs will love to be rooting around in here. We generally rely on a giant heap to do our composting. In years past, what we would do is bury the food into there, and then we just basically take a pitchfork, open it up, throw a container in, close it back. Next time around, go and pick another spot around the heap and just keep on building it up through the year. This year, you see the tube in the back. We'll get into that in a minute. It's a slightly hotter form of composting. The heap is a cold composting technique. And yeah, before we get started, you can see in the back here we have our wheelbarrow and compost trommel. This is an early version of basically a separator, a compost separator that I made a couple years back, and it's worked out well, but there's definitely some improvements that can be done. But it definitely beats sitting there, sifting by hand to get the compost cleaned out. So yeah, we'll get into it in a minute. And first we're going to go through, let me just grab the camera and we'll take a little walk. So as I said, this big pile of compost, mainly this year what we've been doing with this is just bulk yard waste. Been tossing that in here. You see a lot of sticks in here, straw, a lot of leaves, a lot of cuttings from house plants. Whatever big bulk items we have, we'll toss in here. We usually put our wood ash in here. Over here, here's that tube I was telling you about. This is our hot composting tube. This is a conveyor belt from a waste treatment plant or a water treatment plant. And what they do, it's got all these little holes in it. It's very porous, and water will run right through it. So what they do is they separate solids in the water from the water itself, and the water will drain through it. The solids will stay on the top. So we actually got this from a local gardener, Al Carp. He makes these. He cuts them up, puts the rivets up the side, and sells them. The design of it is great because you usually have about 2 feet into a pile that is going to get oxygen. So, a little less than 2 feet into the center here, you're going to always have oxygen getting into this pile from all sides. What I'll do is I'll dump my food scraps in here. I'll stir it around. We'll go through that later. But it's going to be a much faster process than the pile itself. I probably filled this since we really started going. It's December 26th today. I think I started filling this up end of August time frame, and we've probably put, we've probably filled the thing up 7 or 8 times at this point, at least, probably even more, where it was just like over the top and eventually just kind of sunk down as everything's breaking down. So I'm really interested to see what is inside at this point. If you were following along on TikTok, you probably saw our video on there where we pulled up the one that we had in the greenhouse over last winter, and you could see the different layers of stuff breaking down. So we'll pull that up today also and see what we got. But first, before we do anything here, we're going to go through. This section here is what I'm considering finished compost. It's all fine composition, nice and finished, loamy soil. You still have a couple little things in here, little sticks and stuff. There's probably a bunch of rocks in here. We always have rocks all over the dang yard. So there's a bunch of stuff that isn't necessarily ready to be mixed into my regular garden beds or into planters for, you know, vegetable pots or whatever. So we'll first we're going to sift through this, and then we're going to overturn the entire compost. Before we overturn the compost, we'll go through, we'll pull this up and take a look at what we've got inside, and then we'll move everything over into this section. We'll just turn it all over and basically start all over again. So let's get to it. I guess before that, we should talk real quick about the trommel itself. You'll see it in action in a few, but I built this off of just a basic design. I saw a couple online that are very similar. If you go on, obviously on YouTube, and you just search compost trommel, you'll find a bunch of different designs on there. This is just two, I think these are 18-inch bicycle rims, maybe 16-inch. From a kid's bike, we were getting rid of it. I cut the rubber off. I attached 1x2s. Yeah, 1x2s as like support, and then I just put this expanded aluminum mesh across it, and I just zip tied it all to it. So it sits on these 4 little caster wheels, and then they're just bolted to this 2x4 frame that I built to my wheelbarrow here. Put a couple wings on the side so that it doesn't go back and forth side to side, and I keep a bungee cord on the front so it doesn't slide down the back. And we're just going to run compost through this. As we put it in, we turn it, and finished compost, the real nice fine stuff, drops down to the bottom, and the larger stuff that still needs some time will fall out the back, goes into this bin. When it's done, I'll just toss it off. When it's full, I'll just toss it off to the side, or if I'm only doing a little bit, I'll dump it back into the main compost. We'll figure out what we're going to do for now. I'm going to try to process as much of this as I can, and maybe put it in a barrel or two to keep it separated from everything else. So let's get to it. So with this, I'll just take a spade shovel, dig into the compost pile, put some in, see it all dumping out the bottom, and then whatever is too big, get a lot of rocks dropping in there. That'll all just roll through. All right, so we got a full wheelbarrow, and you can see here, this is all the stuff that got kicked out. Now, if I really wanted to, I could probably run this all through again, and you definitely see some soil in there. But I've got enough compost going on here that I'll still just end up tossing this back in and just continue cycling through some good stuff. You can see the makeup in there. You got some rocks, and you got some sticks, some roots, some leaves that didn't make it through, and a lot of eggshells that maybe didn't totally break down. But then what you have left over is this beautiful soil. I've never gotten it tested. I might this year. I know it. Jenny picked me up a little at-home soil test kit. I'll probably mess around with that at some point and see what we're looking at, and maybe send it off to Rutgers and get it professionally tested. But it's very, very loose, fluffy soil. I don't know the nutrient content. Like I said, I haven't had it tested, but I know that just about anything that we put it on thrives. So something's going well. So that's the finished product coming from the base over here. This was all just one big pile. I think the last time we flipped it was about a year ago. So that was like the final position of it. It's gone through a couple different stages when it was over in this section here. We turned it a couple times and then ended up over here as the final place. And we haven't touched this since the last time we turned it. So still plenty of stuff to be broken down again. Who knows, some of the, other than obviously the rocks aren't going to break down, but the roots and the wood and everything that's in there, some of that stuff has come through probably a couple different times, and eventually it'll just break down and go into the soil. So I'm going to finish that up, and then we'll move on to opening up the tube. You can see my composting little helpers over here. The chickens, they love to jump in the compost pile and pick it apart. I've already raked a bunch of this up back into the pile, but they've completely kicked all this out, and there's like a nice fine layer of finished compost along the edge there that they've just been working through as they're picking for bugs. They do a pretty good job. They've really helped to aerate the soil. So 2 wheelbarrows got me almost a 55-gallon drum of finished compost. And now we've still got some here that I could probably pick through this more, but kind of want to get through and get messing with this pile. It's starting to get a little bit later in the afternoon now, and don't know how many beautiful days like this we're gonna have. So I want to take advantage of it and try to turn as much of this as I can today. So at this point, let's go ahead and move on to the tube, and we'll pull it and see how it's looking. Well, that's not going to work the way I want it. So this is about 4 months of food scraps, yard waste, whatever we can get our hands on. You can see the change in color. So in 4 months at the bottom here, we pretty much have some finished compost. Wouldn't hurt to run it through the trommel, but it's pretty much done. Now, I'm not planning on running this through the trommel. I'm actually going to break this up. We're going to spread it out and try to mix it in as we turn the other pile. All the good microbes and little organisms like pill bugs or worms that are in here. You can see a couple pill bugs or wood lice crawling in there now. All these little bugs are breaking all this down. All the bacteria and microbes that are in here, mixing that in with the rest of the pile as we turn it is going to help jumpstart the decomposition of all that stuff. So next, we're going to take all this, we're going to flip it with the pitchfork over to here. There's Big Mama coming over to help out with the compost. Big Mama. What's up, girl? So as you can see here, here's the middle of the pile, since the chickens just dumped it over. Good stuff. So as I'm turning the compost pile over, we're aerating it, and I'm also hosing down different layers of it to try to add some extra moisture into it. While I'm doing the turning, I'm also trying to pepper in some of the larger, less broken down stuff and trying to spread it out throughout the pile. You see a bunch of straw here. I had some left over from a hay bale or straw bale. I'm basically also trying to like layer that in as we go. We can add some fresh material in that's going to be more food for the bugs and the little microorganisms to work on breaking down for us. So as we do that, we're really just kind of speeding up the process. The whole pile, you can see here what has been composting here. It's breaking down pretty good, even with not messing with it too much. But pulling that all over, getting oxygen in there, it's gonna rejuvenate, like really reignite the composting power of everything in here, and it's gonna help break things down a lot quicker. Over time, this will just break down all on its own. For the most part, some of it can take years to break down, but the process of moving it over, like I said, as those microorganisms and even the bugs start moving around more in there, you're going to get a lot more activity in the pile. It's going to be heating up, and that's going to help with the breakdown also. Another thing that helps with the breakdown is the actual mechanical movement of everything. Some things that might have been kind of like on the line, it was a little bit tougher to get into. There's some things like this here. This is old cana stalks that we cut down. These are still pretty fresh, but as they get tossed over, they might get broken. They might get ripped apart a little bit. As I stab the pitchfork into some of this stuff, it gets all thrown off. And that manual rip and tear helps to break things down also. Okay.